So, C. Murder, recanted witnesses, DNA evidence claims, Kim Kardashian, and a non-unanimous jury. These are the pieces of one of the most debated criminal cases in hip-hop history, and we are going to look at every single one of them. The case of Corey Miller has had people picking sides for over 2 decades now. Let's get into whether C. Murder has finally been released, and whether new evidence has actually proven his innocence. To understand where we are now, we need to go back to where it all started. Corey Miller was born on March 9, 1971, and he would grow up to become one of the most recognized names in Southern rap. He was born in uptown New Orleans, Louisiana, and grew up in the Calliope Projects in the 3rd Ward of New Orleans with his sister Jermaine and brothers Silk the Shocker and Master P and Kevin Miller. The Calliope Projects in the 1970s and 1980s were one of the toughest neighborhoods, in a city already known for its high crime rates. He was born and raised in the very rough 3rd Ward Calliope Projects of New Orleans. Now, the Miller family did not stay trapped in those projects forever. His oldest brother, Percy, known as Master P, was a basketball star in high school and received a basketball scholarship to play for the University of Houston. However, Percy dropped out months into his freshman year. After the death of his grandfather, Percy inherited $10,000 as part of a malpractice settlement and opened up a record store called No Limit Records. That record store would eventually become one of the most dominant record labels in the history of hip-hop. And Corey Miller, now going by the stage name C. Murder, was one of the artists at the center of that movement. He initially gained fame in the mid-1990s as a part of his brother Master P's label, No Limit Records, primarily as a member of the label's supergroup TRU. True was a trio, Master P alongside his brother C. Murder and Silk the Shocker. When No Limit Records exploded onto the scene, they were everywhere. Every month it seemed like a new album was dropping, and fans could not get enough. After graduating from high school, Corey Miller enlisted in the United States Army. He served as a combat medic and was deployed to the Persian Gulf during the Gulf War. This is something a lot of people do not know about C. Murder. Before he ever stepped into a recording booth, he was a soldier. He served his country, and when he came back from duty, he stepped into the world of music with his brother. In 1998, Miller released his first album, Life or Death, which peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and was eventually certified platinum. That album put him on the map as a solo artist, not just Master P's little brother. In 1999, he released Bossellini, which peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and was certified gold. In 2000, he released Trapped in Crime, which peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200. 3 albums in 3 years, all charting in the top 10. C. Murder was at the height of his career. C. Murder has released 9 albums altogether on 6 different labels: No Limit Records, TRU Records, Coke Records, Asylum Records, RBC Records, and 21. But on January 12, 2002, everything changed. In September 2003, Miller was convicted of second-degree murder. In connection with the January 12, 2002 beating and fatal shooting of a fan, 16-year-old Steve Thomas at the Platinum Club, a now-closed nightclub in Harvey, Louisiana. A 16-year-old kid who was a fan of C. Murder was dead, and the finger was pointed directly at Corey Miller. The incident occurred on the night of Jan 12, 2002, when Thomas was beaten and fatally shot. In Louisiana's Platinum nightclub, by multiple accounts, the nightclub was packed. C. Murder was performing that night, or was at least present as a celebrity in the venue. Something went wrong. A fight broke out, and a gun went off. Steve Thomas was hit and killed. Miller was arrested in the early hours of January 18th for causing a disturbance at the House of Blues in New Orleans, and shortly after charged in Thomas's murder. He was indicted on February 28, 2002. Now, here's what the prosecution's case rested on. Bouncer Darnell Jordan claimed he saw C. Murder shoot Thomas, as did Kenneth Jordan, no relation to Darnell, and the artist was convicted of second-degree murder. 2 eyewitnesses, both named Jordan, not related, said they saw C. Murder pull the trigger. That was the foundation of the entire case. And here is where things get complicated. According to attorney Philip C. Hamilton, there's no physical evidence. You're not hearing anything about them having found a gun. There was nothing about any DNA. There was no surveillance video. There was no confession. This all boiled down to the witness statements of these 2 primary individuals, who testified to having seen the shooting. No gun recovered, no DNA, no video, no confession. Just 2 witnesses pointing at C. Murder. The trial itself went through multiple phases and exposed cracks in the system that still have people debating today. Judge Martha Sassoni granted a new trial in April 2004, based on the claim that prosecutors improperly withheld criminal background information on 3 of their witnesses. Think about that for a moment. The first conviction was thrown out because the prosecution hid information about their own witnesses. This is significant because it meant the jury in the first trial did not have the full picture of who was testifying against C. Murder. They did not know about the criminal backgrounds of the people the state was relying on. On March 20th, 2006, Miller was released on a $500,000 bond and placed under house arrest. During this period, C. Murder continued to work. Sony allowed Miller to promote his new, yet-to-be-titled CD and his novel, Death Around the Corner, while under house arrest, but ruled that a gag order pertaining to the case would remain in effect. But before the retrial on the murder charge, there was another case that hurt C. Murder's image. On May 27, 2009, Miller pleaded no contest to 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder. These charges stem from a 2001 incident in Baton Rouge in which Miller fired 1 shot, after which it jammed, from a semi-automatic pistol at the owner and bouncer of a nightclub who refused to allow Miller to enter the business with the gun. Miller was sentenced to 10 years with credit for time served, a separate incident, a separate conviction. This is the kind of prior record that makes it harder for any jury to give a defendant the benefit of the doubt, even if they are told not to consider it. Then came the second murder trial. On August 5, 2009, the murder trial began. The father of the victim spoke of his son being a fan of C. Murder before the incident. A bouncer also testified against Miller, saying he witnessed the shooting. He expressed fear of repercussions for his testimony. Prosecutors also charged C. Murder's associates with witness tampering. The trial moved quickly, and then it came to the jury. On August 10, 2009, the jury reported being deadlocked, but Judge Hans Liljeberg instructed them to attempt to resolve the deadlock. 3 hours later, the jury returned to announce it reached a 10-2 guilty verdict. The judge suspected that, given the deadlock announced earlier followed by the quick reversal, one of the jurors decided to switch under pressure to end the trial and instructed the jury to go back and deliberate on the case longer. When they returned with the same 10-2 verdict, Miller was convicted of second-degree murder. This is where the case starts to look different from most murder cases in America. In 48 states and in federal court, that 10-2 verdict would have been a hung jury. But Louisiana at that time allowed non-unanimous jury verdicts. 2 jurors said not guilty, and it did not matter. One of the jurors, Mary Jacob, said that both she and a fellow juror, a 20-year-old student at Xavier University of Louisiana, were verbally abused by fellow jurors for their decision to acquit. According to Jacob, the pressure was so intense that it literally made a juror physically ill. This is the sworn statement of a juror, someone who was in the deliberation room, saying that she changed her vote not because of evidence, but because she could not take the abuse anymore. Miller's attorney raised this as a key point, stating that one juror cast a guilty vote not based on the evidence, but because she wanted to end deliberations to protect another juror, who refused to convict Miller but was targeted by other jurors to change her mind. C. Murder was sentenced on August 14th by District Judge Hans Liljeberg to mandatory life imprisonment. Life in prison, no parole, based on a 10-2 jury verdict where jurors claimed they were pressured. Now, let's talk about why that 10-2 verdict matters beyond this single case. Ramos v. Louisiana, 1990 U.S. 83, 2020, is a U.S. Supreme Court decision in which the court ruled that the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution requires that guilty verdicts be unanimous in criminal trials. The decision also incorporated the Sixth Amendment requirement for unanimous jury criminal convictions against the states, and thereby overturned the court's previous decision from the 1972 cases Apodaca v. Oregon and Johnson v. Louisiana. At the time of the decision, only Oregon and Louisiana allowed non-unanimous jury convictions. In 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court said what C. Murder's supporters had been saying for years: non-unanimous jury verdicts are unconstitutional. Kim Kardashian pointed this out when she tweeted, "The jury convicted Corey 10-2, and he was sentenced him to life in prison. If his trial was today, the jury would have had to be unanimous for him to be convicted, but there was a catch." The Supreme Court later ruled in Edwards v. Vinoy that the Ramos decision does not apply retroactively to people who had already exhausted their appeals. C. Murder had exhausted his direct appeals. On February 19, 2013, the Supreme Court rejected Miller v. Louisiana, which was Miller's final appeal of his conviction. So even though the very system that convicted him was declared unconstitutional, that ruling could not help him. If the non-unanimous jury issue was one leg of C. Murder's fight, the witness recantations were the other. And what happened with these witnesses is something that has generated outrage from lawyers, celebrities, and the general public alike. In June 2018, Miller's case was featured on Investigation Discovery Reasonable Doubt. It was on this episode that Kenneth Jordan recanted and discussed his false testimony. Jordan stated he was pressured by detectives to testify against Miller, or he himself would have faced a 10-year prison sentence for unrelated criminal charges. That is a witness going on national television and saying he lied under oath, and that law enforcement forced him to do it. One of 2 key witnesses who identified rapper Corey C. Murder Miller as the lone gunman in a 2002 nightclub killing in Harvey has recanted, claiming in a sworn statement that Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office detectives pressured him to lie under threat of a criminal charge. Kenneth Jordan, one of the key witnesses, claimed while recanting his testimony in 2018 that detectives pressured him to lie under oath or else he would face a 10-year sentence on unrelated criminal charges. "I know the individual that I saw shoot the gun was not Corey Miller," Jordan said at the time. And it was not just Kenneth Jordan. The second key witness, Darnell Jordan, also claimed that he felt pressured to lie under oath in 2018. Although they share a last name, the witnesses are not related to each other. Darnell also signed a letter saying he was certain the No Limit Records MC did not shoot the victim. Both witnesses, both recanted. Both said C. Murder was not the shooter. C. Murder's attorney filed motions immediately. Barker argued that the recantation raises several constitutional issues, noting that, on countless occasions, both prior to making his statement and prior to testifying at trial, Mr. Jordan told members of law enforcement and prosecution that his 2003 recorded statement to the JPSO officers was not true, that the person he saw commit the shooting was definitely not Corey Miller, and that he did not want to lie under oath about Corey's involvement. According to the attorney's filing, the state had never once disclosed this information to Mr. Miller himself or to Mr. Miller's attorneys throughout more than 15 years of proceedings. So what happened when this was brought before the court? About a year later, a judge ruled the new evidence was not enough for a retrial because it was suspect. The judge said the recantations were not reliable. Judge Vance addressed Darnell and Kenneth Jordan's recantations. She stated that their retracted statements were suspect and not reliable, and added that the state trial court found contradictions and falsities in both Darnell's and Kenneth's affidavits, which led the court to conclude that the affidavits were not credible and unreliable to serve as proof. A man says he was forced to lie under oath. He signs a sworn affidavit. He goes on television. He says the words clearly, "The person I saw shoot the gun was not Corey Miller," and the court says it is not enough. Kenneth Jordan could face a felony charge should he take the stand and recant his identification of Miller as the shooter. Under a Louisiana perjury statute, prosecutors wouldn't need to prove on which occasion he lied, only that he gave inconsistent statements on the stand. The penalty for perjury in a murder case is 5 to 40 years in prison. So think about this. The witness who says he was coerced into lying faces up to 40 years in prison just for saying he lied. The system essentially creates a trap. Testify against someone, and if you later say that testimony was false, you risk decades behind bars yourself. That discourages anyone from ever coming forward and telling the truth. The C. Murder case has drawn some of the most high-profile figures in entertainment and law. Kim Kardashian West called for the release of New Orleans rapper C. Murder, who she says was wrongly convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. In 2020, she began advocating for his release privately and has become more vocal about it recently. In August of 2023, Kim Kardashian revealed she was working on his case because she believed he was innocent. She posted a thread on social media laying out the facts of the case and calling for justice. She stated, "Corey Miller deserves a day in court to test the veracity of the recanted statements and to prove that he did not shoot Steve Thomas." Notable civil rights attorneys Ben Crump and Ronald Haley Jr. have also been added to his defense team. Ben Crump is the same attorney who represented the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. The fact that he took on C. Murder's case says something about the kind of injustice he believes occurred here. In 2009, C. Murder was sentenced to life in prison with no parole and made his way to Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, but has always maintained his innocence, with stars such as Kim Kardashian and Monica advocating for his release. Monica, the R&B singer and C. Murder's former girlfriend, has been one of the most consistent voices calling for his freedom over the years. But what about his own family? The relationship between C. Murder and his brother Master P has been complicated. According to a tweet from My Mixtapez on March 4, 2026, Master P said his brother could have been home years ago if he had listened to him and taken an 8-year deal. Master P was quoted as saying, "Sometimes you've got to listen to the people who love you." This adds a layer to the story that people rarely discuss. There was apparently a plea deal on the table at some point, an 8-year sentence. C. Murder did not take it. He maintained his innocence and chose to fight it in court. Now, depending on how you look at it, that decision was either principled or catastrophic. If you believe he is innocent, turning down a deal makes sense. Why plead guilty to something you did not do? But from Master P's perspective, his brother could have served 8 years and come home. Instead, he is going on 24 years behind bars. The pragmatic move and the principled move were two different things. Awareness of the circumstances of Master P's incarcerated brother, C. Murder, resurged, after the BET docuseries No Limit Chronicles aired, prompting Percy to rally for his brother's release. On August 17, 2020, Master P posted a video to his Instagram account of him and C. Murder's lawyer speaking to a group of protesters, inciting momentum to work in favor of his brother's liberation. And yet, despite all this support, every legal door has been closed. Unfortunately for C. Murder, a trio of circuit judges with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Judge Vance's 2023 ruling. Despite his efforts to secure a certificate of appealability by demonstrating a substantial showing of the denial of a constitutional right, the court found his arguments insufficient to meet this standard. The judges ruled that Miller has not made such a showing. Accordingly, his motion for a KOA is denied. The Fifth Circuit shut it down. And it did not stop there. The Louisiana Supreme Court on Tuesday, February 3, 2026, refused to hear another appeal of rapper Corey Miller's 2009 murder conviction. Miller has repeatedly challenged his second-degree murder conviction and life sentence for fatally shooting 16-year-old Steve Thomas in a Harvey nightclub in 2002. Corey Miller, the 54-year-old younger brother of rap mogul Percy Master P. Miller, has argued that the recantation of testimony by two witnesses and claims about DNA evidence during the investigation warrant throwing out his conviction, or at least granting him a new court hearing in hopes of a retrial. Those appeals for post-conviction relief have been rejected, and the 7 Louisiana Supreme Court justices on Tuesday voted unanimously to say they see no reason to consider them again. All 7 justices, unanimous. They would not even hear it. But the victim's family has a perspective too, and it deserves to be heard. George Thomas, Steve Thomas's brother, appeared on the Boss Talk 101 podcast. During the interview, he called Kardashian's defense of the rapper a slap in the face, saying it's a high-profile case, so you jumped on a case without reading all of the facts. Had you done the research, you would say, hey, I'm not getting in this case. And then my family can't properly mourn because every year, whether it's BT, whether it's something on YouTube, whether it's something else coming forward, it's always he's innocent, he was railroaded. That pain is real. Steve Thomas was 16 years old. He went to a nightclub to see an artist he admired, and he never came home. His family has spent over 2 decades hearing people argue that the man convicted of killing their loved one is innocent. Regardless of where you stand on C. Murder's guilt or innocence, Steve Thomas's family has lost a child, and their grief does not go away because witnesses recanted. Here's where we have to address the title of this video directly. The claim is that C. Murder has finally been released after new evidence proved his innocence. So let's lay out what we actually know as of March 2026. As of October 2025, C. Murder remains locked up at the Elaine Hunt Correctional Center in Louisiana. The Louisiana Supreme Court on February 3, 2026 refused to hear another appeal of rapper Corey Miller's 2009 murder conviction. According to reports, the Louisiana Supreme Court has denied the New Orleans native's latest attempt to appeal his 2009 murder conviction. Corey Miller, also known as C. Murder, is currently serving a life sentence for a second-degree murder after being convicted in the fatal shooting of 16-year-old Stephen Thomas at a nightclub in 2002. As of now, there might be 0 to no chance that the rapper ever comes home, as there are no new trials or successful appeals in C. Murder's case. C. Murder has not been released. He has not been exonerated. No new evidence has proven his innocence in a court of law. The 2 witnesses who recanted were not deemed credible enough for a retrial. The non-unanimous jury argument has been blocked by retroactivity rules. The Fifth Circuit denied his appeal. The Louisiana Supreme Court, all 7 justices, unanimously refused to hear his case again just weeks ago. That is the reality. The title suggests something that has not happened. As of today, March 2026, Corey Miller remains in prison serving a life sentence. Now, does that mean the case is closed in the minds of the public? No, there are still people fighting. Miller's attorney, Jane Hogan, released a statement appealing the decision, stating that, while I am disappointed that Mr. Miller has, yet again, been denied a day in court, this ruling will be appealed. Mr. Miller also has a pending state court petition alleging factual innocence, and I am optimistic that at some point, he will be granted a hearing on his substantial claim of innocence. C. Murder himself has said from prison, I'm still fighting this case. They're gonna let me out eventually. Legal analysts suggest that if clemency or a retrial is granted, 2026 could bring new hearings. Clemency remains a path. The governor of Louisiana could intervene. A presidential pardon is theoretically possible, but extremely unlikely for a state conviction. Federal habeas corpus remains a narrow option, but one that has so far failed. There are real questions in this case that remain unanswered. The lack of physical evidence is one of them. The coercion claims by both witnesses are another. The juror who admitted she changed her vote under duress is a third. The fact that the conviction came on a 10-2 verdict that would now be unconstitutional is a fourth. But there are also real reasons the courts have denied relief. The recantations were made years after the original testimony. Recantations are treated with skepticism in the legal system, because courts assume witnesses are more likely telling the truth when they testify under oath at trial, not years later when they sign an affidavit outside of court. The judges who reviewed the affidavits found contradictions in them. And while the Ramos decision said non-unanimous juries are unconstitutional, the Supreme Court made it clear in Edwards versus Van Noy that this new rule does not apply to people whose cases were already final. The C murder case sits at the intersection of a flawed justice system and the limits of what courts are willing to do about it. It is a case where the evidence was thin from the start. It is a case where both witnesses say they lied. It is a case where a juror says she was pressured. And it is a case where, despite all of that, the man remains in prison. Miller maintains his innocence, and he, his brothers, and his nephew have all called for a new trial numerous times. The final outcome rests on whether upcoming reviews uncover new evidence strong enough to alter the verdict. Until then, C. Murder remains behind bars, hopeful for a chance at freedom and justice that many believe is long overdue. So has C. Murder been released? No. Has new evidence proven his innocence? In the court of public opinion, many believe it has. In a court of law, the answer remains no, but the fight is not over. And as long as C. Murder is alive and his legal team is filing motions, the possibility, however slim, remains that one day, a court might finally agree to take a second look. Whether that day comes is something none of us can predict. But the facts of this case, the recanted testimony, the non-unanimous jury, the lack of physical evidence, the juror pressure, those facts are not going away, and neither is the conversation. That's the full story. If you found this video informative, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to see it. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. Is C. Murder innocent, or did the system get it right? I'll see you in the next one.